Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video, I'm bringing to you my short spoiler-free review of Deviants, the Queer Family Chronicles by Santanu Bhattacharya. This is an Indian literary fiction book that was published in the beginning of this year in 2025 and it was also my book club pick for the month of August this year. I love this book so much and in specific, I love the author's writing more than anything. So without any further ado, let's get into the various sections of the review right away. As usual, let's start with the plot for the book. And in this book, we follow the life story of three men from this family, and all of these three men are from three different generations and they are all gay men inside the family. The three characters whom we follow are Vivan, Mambro and Sukumar. Vivan is the youngest or the third generation of the gay man whom we see inside this family, and his uncle is Mambro. The first generation from the story is Mambro's uncle, who's Sukumar. We see Sukumar's story unfolding in the 70s and 80s during his early 20s and 30s, and what all happened to Sukumar during that time, how he found love and how his love life was, what are all the other things that happened in Sukumar's life, and the happiness, pains and sadness inside his story. After Sukumar, we have his nephew, who's Mambro. And Mambro is the character whose name we do not know inside this book, if I'm not wrong. I don't remember seeing his name anywhere. And he's called Mambro because in the beginning of the story, we see Vivan narrating the story to us. And since Mambro is Vivan's maternal uncle, Mamu, and since he's also his mother's brother, he combines Mamu and Bro and calls him Mambro. It might sound stupid and dumb when I'm saying it like this, but while you're reading it with the story, it just sounds very sweet. So we see Mambro's stories happening in the late 90s and early 2000s when he's in high school and college. And finally, we see Vivan himself in his teens, especially in his last 2 years of high school, happening in the 2020s, that is now. How all these three gay men in three different generations inside the same family have lived, and what is the amount of history that each and every one of these characters is carried forward to the subsequent generation is what we see here. It is really well written and it does not feel forced in any way at all. To be very honest, while I started reading the book, I just thought that this is just going to be another sad queer book, but it is definitely not that. It has so many layers to it and talks about so many societal issues in a very deep, practical and also sometimes spiritual way. So as a plot, I can say that it is very, very solid, and as you keep on reading the chapters, you get to see the stark difference of the stories between all these three characters who basically feel like the same person while we are introduced to them. Moving on to the characters, I think of all the things inside this book, the characters are the ones which are most strong and well done by the author here. After the characters comes the writing, which is strong, but I think without these strong main characters whom we follow across all three generations, the story would not be as beautiful as it is in any way possible. Along with the three main characters who are Vivan, Mambro and Sukumar, we also have their family members. For example, for Sukumar, we have his younger sister who is also Vivan's grandmother, and we have Sukumar's mother along with him. How Sukumar lives his life along with his younger sister as well as mother, and what all he does for both of them and what all his mother does for both of them is what we see here. We also have some instances during which Sukumar's younger sister, that is Vivan's grandmother, helps Sukumar also, but she plays a very small part inside the story compared to the other characters whom we follow here. When it comes to the next generation, which is Mambro, we have Mambro as well as his sister, and we can see that there's a great relationship for Vivan with the characters from all three generations here because he has a good relationship with his grandmother as well as his mother, who is Mambro's sister. I know that this all sounds confusing, but when you're reading the story, it just becomes a second nature to you because it's easy to follow too. And currently in the present generation, we have Vivan along with his parents. And apart from them, we also have one partner each week whom we focus on for most part of the story for all of these three main characters. And the names of those characters is what was quite annoying for me because I think the author just took a very easy route there, and it also made the story and reading experience for me much better. So I don't have much problems with it as I did while I started reading the book. So Sukumar's partner's name is X, Mambro's partner's name is Y, and Vivan's partner's name is Z. It sounds childish, I know, but while you're reading the story, I can say for sure that it makes the reading experience much more easy. I'm able to remember the names of the characters easily just because they are X, Y, and Z, and they are placed as such for generations together. And when it comes to the three main characters also, if you ask me, Sukumar's story is the most painful of all because there's no awareness about the queer community and what all is happening for them, the problems faced by them, and the normalcy of it during the time when he is experiencing his life, that is during the 70s and 80s. And when it comes to Mambro's story, which is a bit more advanced in time, for example, in the early 2000s, there's a bit more acceptance compared to how it was before in the past 2 decades. And when it comes to Vivan's story right now in the present, we can see that he grows up with a lot more privileges which were not available for his uncle and grand uncle as we see in the generations before. For me personally, I loved Mambro's story and how he took his life into his own hands so much. Sukumar's story was much more painful, and I think that just reflects the sad reality of the things that were happening during those years inside our country. And finally, when it comes to Vivan's part of the story, I felt like he was annoying most of the time because, I'm sorry to say, but he sounded so Gen Z to me. Okay, I'm also a Gen Z, so I can understand, but he was quite annoying, and I think that it was very intentional because Vivan is a teenager whom we see here, and he has access to a lot of resources. And basically, when we see people being smart and being expressive about it, I'm sure that it can turn off a lot of people. And I think the author did it intentionally with Vivan because with his age and all the things that he was talking, he was quite annoying for me. Moving on to the writing of this book, which is the strongest pillar after the characters, okay? Because if not for this good writing, I don't think all the three characters could have gotten the justice that they got in this story at all in any. For example, the writing choice that the author has here itself is very, very nice. Because since we have three different characters, he has chosen to narrate the story of each and every one of the character in three different points of view. For example, we get Vivan's story like he is narrating it to us as voice notes. Okay, so Vivan's story is narrated to us in first person's point of view. He's saying that I did this, I saw this was happening to me, like that. And when we move on to Mambro's story, we get most of the story as journal entries and like he's writing a diary. So it is written in second person's point of view. Mambro's story feels like the author is making you experience the story that has happened to Mambro as you read the text. And finally, when it comes to Sukumar's story, we just have fragments of it known to the characters from the subsequent two generations. So most of Sukumar's story is said to us, the reader. So we just see Sukumar's story as a third person. It is narrated like Sukumar did this was happening for him, and many things like that. And I think that's why it also feels like more of a sad story compared to having so many different emotions built into it. It has so many emotions built into it: happiness, sadness, guilt, joy, pride, longing, and so much more. But the overall tone of Sukumar's story was sad for me, and I think that was because of the third person point of view that the author chose to write it from. I'm not saying it is right or wrong in me, okay? I just felt like it was sadder compared to the other two stories. Apart from this, the author also goes on and shows us the evolution of the awareness of the LGBTQ communities that has happened across the globe, and also their evolution when it comes to legally doing all the things that the people must be allowed to do inside the world. Apart from this, the author's writing is also so strong that he just goes forward and spits some truth just as such. It is like aiming daggers at you and just landing them properly. While you read certain lines inside this book, it will not be easy for you to just move on to the next line very easily because he just holds you there. He makes you ruminate on that line and understand what's going on there. It's not just a single line. There's history and depth that is given by the author through these characters here inside the story. I just love the writing so much, and see the amount of tabs that I have here. It might look like less, but I have at least 80 to 90 tabs inside this book, and the book is not even 300 pages long, so that says something about it. Finally, talking about the pacing is very medium inside this book, okay? It does not move fast at any instant, and it does not go slow also that you get bored in any way. The author maintains a proper pace that you keep on reading the story. At the same time, you don't feel like you feel bored because of this. I said that I was annoyed by Vivan at multiple instances, but not even at one point I wanted to stop reading her story and do something else. I just wanted to know what's going to happen next in his story, and it was really well done by the author here. The medium pace also helps us to let us sit with the emotions for some time and let them sink into our body so that we understand what people are going through. Most people in the society, we don't even know what is happening to the LGBTQ people inside the community, and the author makes sure that he makes it understood to every reader who goes forward and reads the story. I also think this will make a great limited series in Netflix because I don't think any other such platforms can do justice for a story which is as beautifully written as this one. Also, I'd suggest you to read this only if you're an adult because there's a lot of explicit content here. At the same time, there's so much of hate and violence also weaved into the stories of both Sukumar as well as Mambro. There's also a lot of grooming that is happening to Ivan inside the story. Look up for the trigger warnings and content warnings before reading the book because it does have quite a lot of them. As a whole, I can say that I rated this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. That 0.5 star also got away from me just because of the way in which Vivan was written, because even though I ended up liking him by the end of the story, he was quite annoying for me for at least half of the book. So yeah, if you have any second thoughts of if you want to read this book or not, just keep in mind all the other things which I talked about the book just a few minutes back and make the choice for yourself. I suggest you to go forward and give it a try if you are interested because it's a great story and it's also something which is unlike most of the stories that we get inside our Indian publishing. So yes guys, that's it for my short spoiler-free review of Deviants, the Queer Family Chronicles by Santanu Bhattacharya. I hope this review was useful for you. If it was, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.